weird thing about money is that it's extremely easy to make, but also very difficult.
The other day I was sitting down on the couch and I got a text message from Nick. It happens a lot, but this one I felt something was up. Out of the blue, Nick asked me, what's one thing you wish you could fix or overcome in life right now? My answer wasn't about wanting more money, but about how expensive life has become and how that affects balance. It feels like people are working harder than ever just to keep up. I don't believe money buys happiness, but it certainly solves problems. This podcast is brought to you by Andersen. We all know how important reputation is in this industry, so it's easy to see why more and more pros are turning to Andersen for windows, doors, and moving glass walls. Andersen has earned the trust from pros and homeowners alike for over 120 years. They will work with you to work smarter, stay on budget, and earn more referrals by providing high-quality products and installation support, making your installations easier and confidence stronger. If you've ever visited the ProViews blog on their website, you'll also see how they're working directly with pros to share helpful insight throughout the industry. Check them out at trustandersen.com. This podcast is brought to you by Buildertrend. I've always said it, if you're not watching your job costs closely, you're just guessing at your profit. Buildertrend sat down with the construction accountants over at month end, and they laid out exactly how to maximize job costing and protect your margins. This isn't theory. It's practical stuff you can do today to cut financial risk and make more money. Even small tweaks can mean the difference between a profitable year and a stressful one. Go grab those tips now at buildertrend.com/mcprofit. This podcast is brought to you by Harnish. First impressions matter, and your crew's appearance speaks volumes. Harnish Workwear helps your brand exude a commanding presence with custom branded gear that reflects the quality of your craftsmanship. Their H-Label program delivers premium work apparel, personalized with your logo, colors, and details. It's more than a uniform. It's a walking representation of your brand. Clean, consistent, and built to perform. If you're ready to elevate your image and stand out from the competition, visit harnishworkwear.com and start building your brand from the ground up. So like I said, I was sitting on the couch. I get a text message from Nick, which happens a lot, but this one seemed as though there was something deeper looming in the background. And again, that question was, what's one thing you wish you could fix or overcome in life right now? My answer to Nick was money, but not really in the general sense of, hey, I wish I had more money right now. I think everyone always wishes they would have more money, more so to be able to fix bigger problems. I think money in general would help a lot of people just with how expensive life has become, how much stress we put on ourselves, how much we need to work. I think there's an imbalance right now in life and business, which is really difficult for a lot of people. And I mean, there's the typical saying, money doesn't buy happiness, but I do believe that it solves problems. And I think that if life were more affordable, a lot of things would be different. And again, my answer, I asked Nick what his answer was, and he was like basically similar. And it's not in the sense of, hey, I wish I had $5 million. I wish I had $10 million. I just wish that money weren't as difficult as it is today. I think things have changed. Perspective has shifted. And it's a little bit harder for people just to survive and be present in life.
I think we both masked our real answer by money. Or at least I feel like I did. Because when I had texted you that, like my initial thought is not money. When you had said, oh, money because X, Y, Z, and it's not in the traditional sense, I was like, well, I guess it's not, what I want to change is the stress around like my home renovation or actually that's not even it. It's just like, when Meg and I like are not in a bad spot, but just like not on the same page, that's like my number one thing that like really screws with me. It's like when we're on different pages, like I have a hard time working through that. And we're also very different in personality type. So like, I'm like, I want to fix it. I want to talk about it. I want to come to a solution. She's not. And but then I was like, well, it's not that. It's really like if our home renovation was done, like we wouldn't be at, odds with one another because we'd have the space that we want. And right now we're on top of each other and it's just stressful because we have 4 kids. And it's like, well, it's not that. It's money, because if I had money, I could do the home renovation. And then it's like you just continue to kind of like pull back and look at it as, well, if I had this, I could have that, which would resolve this.
Yeah,
And
I don't think that, money's not going to buy you health. Money won't buy you happiness, but we have to be realistic, and money solves a lot of problems. I think a lot of the problems today are just like we're spread so thin.
Yeah,
and why?
I agree with that. I think money is. I think money specifically is something that can offer a lot of solution to the issues. I think I know we went back and forth for a bit, but I think I ended up saying, like, the weird thing about money is that it's extremely easy to make, but also very difficult.
Yeah.
And which makes no sense when you hear it like that. But the reality is we choose to do things, if you're listening to this podcast, I know that there's a lot of guys that they don't own businesses, and they're working a 9 to 5, and they're like, what do you mean? Like, I go to work, I get paid, that's it. And, I've struggled with that mentality in the sense that, which I struggle with the guys that do that and then complain that they don't have enough, because it's like, but you have the opportunity to go and compound that salary elsewhere. Like I've talked to guys one-on-one about, they're like, I make so much amount a year, I don't know how I could ever afford to retire or ever afford to do anything beyond what is, what I can afford paycheck to paycheck. And it's like, but what other opportunities are you looking at? And an example in this case, in this particular conversation, was this kid, owned a big portion of his house, like had a tremendous amount of equity in it. And I'm not saying go tap your equity on your home or your HELOC to go do a bunch of like fun things, but it's like, why not buy a rental property?
Yeah.
Like, you're in the trade. Like, you're actually one of the best people to own a second property, because your cost of the repairs is going to be much less. And it's like, and so many people are so funneled in, they go to work, they come home, they're exhausted, that's it. Like, they don't do anything above and beyond that. And I do understand that, where it's like when you're physically exhausted, the last thing you want to come home and do is like, all right, now how do I make my 40-hour paycheck go to work for me? But that is the world that we live in. Like, when everyone else, I say everyone else, but when a large group of people are compounding their cash or their wealth so quickly, like, that's, you're creating this bigger and bigger divide, where it's like you have the guys that, regardless if you make 100 grand a year or 50 grand a year or 30 grand, like people survive on that by ultimately compounding that in other ways.
Sure. And it comes down to lifestyle, and it comes down to your needs. And I think there's a lot of variables that you have to consider. I think when we look at big picture, just in general, let's start the conversation with I guess a broader approach to it. Do we think that money buys freedom, or is that a fallacy that we have? Like, are we confusing that money buys freedom, or does it?
I think it depends. You said it comes down to lifestyle, right? And it's, it's everything. It's, where do you live? It's so much more costly to live in a city than it is in like a more rural area. And your lifestyle also is catered around that. When we're up in New Hampshire, like, if we spend time, the more time we spend up there, the less money we spend.
Yeah.
There's not all of these things that we can just spend money on. We're more apt to go and live a simpler life. Go to cook dinner every night rather than going out to eat or ordering food and having it delivered. It's just that I think the lifestyle is a huge driver to that. And there is this pressure to live in particular areas or live close to where you work. especially in our industry. I mean, so many guys travel, an hour plus every day just to get to work.
Yeah. So I mean, realistically, it sounds as though you do feel that money buys free. I think it does. Like, I don't think it buys happiness, but I think that money can afford you freedom, right? If you
Yeah.
didn't need money, you would have the freedom to not
Yes.
have to show up for clients,
Yeah.
to live wherever you want, to not have to worry about if you want to eat out, if you don't want to eat out. Like, again, it can't provide you with health.
Mm-hmm.
It can't provide you with happiness, but I do believe there is a lot of freedom that comes from having more money. And that doesn't mean anything other than I think that you have less people to answer to, you have less things to consider as far as the impact of every decision that you make. So I do think it buys you freedom. So if money can solve problems.
Well, hold on, because just to clarify, having more money doesn't mean earning more money. That there's two sides to that, where it's you either earn more money, you earn more, or spend less. And I think I just want to clarify that, because I think what a lot of people hear, it's like more money equals freedom. It's like, all right, how do I make more money? It's like, well, you don't have to, like, you can go either direction.
Yeah, you can make more, you can spend less. I mean,
Right.
that's like as simple as business can get. But like,
No, but I think a lot
ultimately,
of people think about it in the terms of just like, I need more. It's like, or you need less.
yeah. And I think that, I mean, big picture, I think that we can both agree, yeah, it can solve problem. And that's not, that's not a blanket statement. It's not every single problem can be solved if you throw money at it. And, all your freedoms and liberties cannot be afforded by the dollar. But so the absence of financial stress, meaning that if you had all the means in the world that you didn't have to worry about money any single day, would that equal happiness? And I don't believe that it would. In some ways it might. Like, for me, I can give you an example of how it would. If I had less stress and anxiety about money, not necessarily the day-to-day money, but are we going to be able to afford our kids' college? When are we going to be able to do some things that we like? Are we going to have enough money to retire? Are we going to be okay? I think that would quell some of my anxiety, which would lead to less stress, which would lead more than likely for me to just more calm, more peace, which would translate to happiness, but it wouldn't make me happy. Like, if I'm not happy, it doesn't matter if I have everything that I want, everything that I need. If I'm not happy and I'm not fulfilled, throwing money at it isn't going to lead to happiness. So I don't believe that with the absence of financial stress that you're guaranteed happiness.
Yeah, I would agree with that, because there's like, to your point, there's other things that make you unhappy.
Yeah.
And those will continue to, peak up and down, through life, regardless of the cash.
Where do you think that money has clearly improved your life? And not from a vanity perspective, like, hey, I was able to get this car that makes me feel good, but removing obstacles or challenges, problems from your life.
Well, for the record, I haven't bought that car yet.
I mean, just being in general, anyone, right? Where it's like,
no, I know,
the vacation, the house, the car, like, vanity aside, how has money removed problems within your own life?
I don't know if I could say it has.
So, okay, well then, if right now every problem that you have in your life or that you're facing or that's on the horizon, if you were handed $10 million today, like, what type of problems would that solve for you?
There's probably a half a dozen things I can think of, but the moment, as I'm playing this out in my head, I can just imagine I compound and make $10 million worth of new problems.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's the financial burden that, that I have today that a year ago I didn't have. And 6 months from now, I probably won't have.
I mean, Bill, so like, if you were in debt and somebody were handed you $10 million and you were able to pay down your debt, would that improve your life in some way?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would pay off any debt that is just like, I mean, poor debt, right? Not good debt, and pay all that off. I'd keep my mortgage, because why not? I'd renovate my house, so we'd be done with our renovation. We'd live in a home that we're proud of, and I'd probably invest it into another project or probably build our second home.
Yeah.
But ultimately it would be some sort of business investment where it's like, all right, take half of it, make my personal life a little bit better, and then put the rest of it into investment.
Yeah, I think most people would pay down any high interest debts. I think
Yeah.
that a lot of people would put money aside for their children to be able to ensure and guarantee that they can have some sort of future that is reasonably affordable for themselves. And I think that, there's people who there's certain aspects of their lives where money is creating stress, anxiety, or unhappiness because they're working a job that they don't want to be at and they need the money, the golden handcuffs that I think a lot of people would use that money to create a path in life that they find to be more enjoyable, create more happiness, more calm, serenity within their lives. So for me, it's the same thing, right? If I didn't have to worry about money, there's certain aspects of my life that would improve. I wouldn't worry every day about my kids' future, about our future, about decisions that we're making, about Rachel being unhappy with her job. I think that there's certain things that we could do, but ultimately, deep down, is it going to make me a positive, outgoing, extroverted, bubbly person? Probably not. Definitely not, right? So I think that there's certain aspects of that. And one thing that I had looked up, it's this Maslow's hierarchy, which is security versus self-actualization. And basically, it's a psychology model that explains our motivations in some of the simplest, purest forms of 5 levels. So it's the physiological needs, basics for survival: food, water, shelter, sleep; safety needs, security, stability, health, financial safety; love and belonging, relationships, friendships, family, community, esteem, respect, recognition, achievement, confidence; and 5, self-actualization, personal growth, purpose, fulfilling potential. And the idea here is that people generally are looking to meet those lower needs first. You need to survive, you need food, you need water. And then as you fulfill these needs, you're then moving on to the rest of the needs. But like, you have to physically be able to survive first. And I think that a lot of these, money is not going to impact in one way, shape, or form. They're just basic necessities for life.
Where do you think you're struggling the most in that list?
I would say that without money, like
No. Forget everything we've talked about. Just looking at that, when you say it, it's like, man, like that's the one I need to work on.
I would say that number 2, safety needs, security, stability, health, financial safety, because for me, those are the things that I can't, or at least to date, haven't been able to work my way through. And that the amount of resources that are required sometimes seem unattainable. I think that if you strip everything down, right, I'm going to find ways to survive: food, water, shelter, sleep. Relationships don't really take more than just the time that you're putting into them. I think that you can put in and get out whatever. I think that that's a two-way street. Esteem, respect, recognition. You can carry yourself a certain way. You can help people out. Personal growth. I think that just bettering yourself each and every day. I think the thing for me is just feeling stable, feeling secure, not having the anxiety of, hey, what's going to happen tomorrow? So I think that the safety needs probably affect me more than any of the other ones.
See, safety, I look at that as like I have full control over that. And despite having ups and downs in that, I feel like I have complete control and can always survive that. It's like physiological needs, sure. Esteem, sure. Love and belonging and self-actualization, I think, are the 2 that I struggle with the most. And specifically from like friendships and relationships and fulfilling potential. Because I think that friendships and relationships, I just think I struggle with just for a number of reasons. And I also struggle to understand how to navigate some of those relationships. And also don't ask for a ton of help. And when I do, I feel like I improve, but it's always been hard. But self-actualization, I think, fulfilling the potential, I think that is something that I'm constantly questioning whether or not I'm actually fulfilling my potential, or if I'm coming short, just how short am I coming?
I mean, what do you feel would make you be able to get a grasp on some of those things?
I don't know.
Like, to me, that's not a financial issue, but like
I
there
think it's
are.
acceptance. It's accepting. I struggle with like some relationships and just accepting that for what they are. Like, this is just what it is and who they are, and this is how this relationship will be. And I struggle with that understanding.
From like a potential regret perspective.
Yeah.
So like more than likely family relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that that's extremely unique. I have the same feeling. I think having children, having a family helped me be able to accept a lot of those relationships more so than it was just about me, where I have other things that are more important and require more of my attention and more pressing than when it was selfishly just me. I think I can look elsewhere and I can accept the fact that, hey, maybe this is lacking, but I have this here that means so much to me and requires most of my attention and focus. But I think that all those 5 levels or principles, I think obviously money can affect some of them, but I think that deep down, those are things that you can handle independent of whether you had money or didn't have money. I guess the big thing for me, like I said, is just feeling, and that's just anxiety, that's just control, feeling that you're always okay, that everything's going to be okay. I think that most everything else on there, I feel okay with, and I'm okay. But it's tough. A lot of this, I think, comes from everything that I'm feeling, and this question that you're coming from is life's getting more complicated. Life's getting more expensive. Where do you spend your time? There's so many outside stimulations. There's so much going on. Is life just getting overwhelming? Is life just getting too expensive? Is the need for everyone to have 2-income households to be able to realistically get by, except for the outliers there? I know your wife works part-time, you work full-time, my wife works full-time, but do you think that, generally speaking, from like interactions with customers, with clients, and just seeing people in life, that it's less affordable now, even more so than 10, 15 years ago?
Yes, I do think it is. I do think that is self-inflicted in a lot of ways. I had this conversation about starter homes, and there was this great article I saw on LinkedIn that like hit the nail on the head of everyone. Like, when you think about a starter home, like when people are buying their first home, their expectations are so misaligned. It's like, dude, you can't even buy a starter home for less than $1 million anymore. It's like, what's the house? Well, we need 4,000 square feet and a 2-car garage and, kid bedrooms for all the kids. It's like, dude, what about a 20 by 30 cape, or, a little single floor bungalow with no garage? Like, that's a starter home. That was what a starter home was based on. Like, that's when you look at the 50s, like, and then they would add on the garage and then they'd finish the attic. And it's just that is not the case anymore. People are less willing to approach home ownership that way. And I make that reference because I think that in general, yes, things are more expensive. There is data to back that up. But our expectations of what those things are also askew.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a combination. I think that a lot of people feel entitled to more than relative to the amount of work that they put into it. But I also feel, at least in my area, when I look at starter homes, when I bought our first house, it was a starter home. It was 1,000 square feet. It had 1 bedroom. We were in a 50 by 125 lot, and we paid $176,000 for it. I look at that house. I renovated that house. That house is $450,000 now, and they didn't add to it or do anything to it since I moved out, maybe a little bit of landscaping. And for me, that's where it becomes more or less so about expectations of your lifestyle and more about system or fundamental issues within the system, because now you have somebody at that point. I was 23 when we bought the house. We had trouble getting approved. I just started my business, so we couldn't use me as a contributor to what we were getting approved for on the mortgage. Rachel, we'd just gotten done college. Rachel wasn't making that much money. We didn't have we had just enough money for a down payment. So getting into that house at a very low interest rate was difficult for us. And I now look at somebody else who's 23 and it's $450,000 plus 7, 8, 9% interest. So I think that's, to me, where the system is stacked against us, and it's making it really difficult for people to even get into a starter home. It's like in my area, a starter home is 500 plus.
Yeah.
Which in hindsight, you think of people who are getting done college 21 to 25 years old. That's a big nut when you put 7, 8% interest on it. And I don't want to lose sight of that, because I see a lot of people struggling with that. I would not have been able to afford that. I wouldn't want to even spend that type of money now, let alone 15 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, you just said that house is 450. So the only thing that I'll push back on, you just said starter homes are 500 plus, but there's this one that's 450 that you bought. I bought my first house 175. I sold it for, I'm sorry, I bought mine for 149 and I sold it for 275. So you sold yours for, I think, the same, right? 275.
It was something like that. I think it was 175. I think I sold it for like 250.
Yeah,
I basically broke even.
Yeah, so 250, and now it's another 200 on top of that, right?
Yeah.
So obviously appreciation, you're talking 10 years, plus years. But also it's not a 176 to 450 range. It's more of the 250 to 450 range, which is still a big number. I can appreciate that. But that house, if it wasn't renovated or had the landscape, wouldn't be 450. And that product type just doesn't exist as much because people are demanding or have expectations that they need something bigger and grander. And I'm listen, I think about when I grew up as a kid and all my parents' friends and like what homes they lived in. The homes that they lived in are what I'm watching kids that are younger than me saying that's what they need for their first home.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, my friend grew up in that house, like with parents that were considered to be wealthy.
But dude, like, think if I went on Zillow right now, shout out Zillow, and wanted to buy a house based on income, right? What I made then, what I make now. Obviously, there's things to consider, inflation, everything else. But if I just was like, I want something under 200, it's going to be really bad. 200 with 7% interest is much different than when I was at 200 with 3% interest. And maybe people are making a little bit more right now. But if you were just to look at what's available, it's creating an environment where people cannot choose to have free time. Yes, there's the outliers. There's the people who come out of college making really great money, whose parents have money, who possibly maybe they just saved their whole life and they've set themselves up for success, but that's just not the average American right now. So I look at, like, you get done college, you probably accrued college debt, which is astronomical with interest rates and everything else, and then you can't afford a house. So all you can do is work and continue to work and try and just create some sort of a life for you that I think would be very daunting to come out of college right now and be able to afford anything. Like, I wanted to work. I wanted to prove that I could do all of this, but had that mountain been in front of me where it just seemed like an impossibility, I think it would have created a ton of anxiety for me. I mean, I had anxiety as is. It's all that I knew, but I look at it now and I speak to kids who are under 30 years old and they're like, yeah, I don't have $150,000 for a down payment, and I can't afford a $500,000 mortgage with 8% interest. So what do? Just rent? And like the rental market's crazy right now.
Yeah. I happen to have Zillow on my iPad in front of me, and you're right. Like, everything is a lot. There's not a single house I can get for under 200K. I mean, within a decent radius of Boston.
Yeah, and like that, I don't know. I feel like that's what people like starter home when you think about it.
Yeah, no, 100%.
That shouldn't be at 8% interest, right? So like if you're buying something at two, you need 40 grand worth of cash to not have mortgage insurance. And I don't know. I think it's tough. And I think something else that I struggle with a lot is, and I have this conversation with my dad. Like I literally just got in a fight with my dad about this, a conversation about money, and that you don't understand what it costs to live today. So one generation removed from us, our parents, my dad probably made between 60 and $100,000 a year, probably closer to 60 most years. He raised 5 kids. He built a real estate portfolio by taking out equity of homes that he purchased. And my mom didn't work, and he raised 5 kids. And today I look at that exact situation, and it never would have been and it was barely doable then.
Right.
But you can't tell me, oh, you don't have to worry about money, just spend it. It's only money. It's a business decision, when you don't have the perspective of what life was like, just based on what you're making, the amount of time that you have to spend on everything outside of work. Like, dude, we just got Selby's volleyball schedule for club volleyball. She has practices from 7:45 till 9:45, 2 towns away. And she has to be on the bus before 7 in the morning. And she just started 7th grade. And it just, I think that the from our parents' generation to our generation, so much is different, from like boomers to millennials. And I think it's only getting proportionately worse, that I am afraid of what's going to happen for everyone to come. It just seems, for the average person, and it's tough being on the East Coast, right? East Coast, West Coast, everyone seems to do well. Everyone seems to make money. You're near cities. The median income is up. You can make money on your houses and equity and all of that stuff. But when you inside of coast to coast at what life looks like and how expensive it is and what people are doing for work, education, it just seems as though we're not creating a lifestyle that's conducive to just well-being in general.